Recently, I did a video about my first time. I'm going to clean my glasses. My God. Right, so just recently I did a video about my first outing with the 4x5 view camera, and in the video I showed some of the pictures I took. I was able to take 4 because I have 2 film holders. I want to talk real quick about how I processed the pictures and got them onto the computer. Right, so first you take your pictures and you gotta develop them. What I used was the Bees reel by some dude with a 3D printer in, like, I don't know, Philly? Something like that. I'll post the link, of course. But it's this little guy. It fits in a Patterson tank. It needs to be the 3-reel size or larger. Pick this one up used for 20 bucks. Brand new, it's like 40. If you are already developing film, which you probably are if you've decided to play with 4x5, because it's, not normally the first thing you do, you might already have one of these, so that's cool. The Bees reel is a little pricey. It was like 60 bucks, but it is well designed. I like it. I like the fact that it's just some guy making it. I like the fact that it fits with the system I already have, and I like the design of it. Some of there's like the ones, I can't remember who it is, like it's like a ladder kind of thing, and you can, like, I think you can get 6 negatives in them, but then they touch each other, so they're like, you should only use a 4. That looks like a huge pain in the ass and like something I'd be bad at. And then there's a cool one that's like it's a purpose built. It has, I think, I want to say only does like 4 sheets at a time, but it's a little rectangle. It doesn't use that much volume of liquid for the chemicals. That looks pretty cool too. It was like a little under 100 bucks, but I decided to go with the one I did because, 1, it holds a couple more, and 2, this gives me an excuse to get the slightly bigger Patterson tank, so I can also do 2 reels of 120 at the same time. So I end up with a little more versatility. So that's why I went for the Bees reel. They recommend practicing with like used film or something, which is probably good. It took me, once I had it in the dark bag, I didn't practice beforehand. Once I had it in the dark bag, the first sheet took me like 10 minutes to figure out how to get in, and then the other 3 took like 30 seconds each. The thing I will definitely say, and it's actually mentioned in the little like user guide, pre-wash is very important with this kind of reel to remove your AH layer, and it is. I did 3 on a normal, like, one, roll film. I'll do like 1 pre-wash and that's fine. I did 3 with this, and I still got some dye stains on the negative. I guess because the sheets are like, it doesn't get liquid all around them as well. You have to like just wash it until the water comes out clear, is what I'm gathering. So next time I'll try that and see if that works. But that's something to think about. You can see on the negatives, there's a pretty noticeable, you can see the blue stripe down there in the middle. And fortunately my scanner actually dealt with that pretty well. You either can't really see it, or you can kind of see like a lighter strip. If I really wanted to, I could probably get out relatively easily. But I'm just going to try to do it better next time, and this was the first time, so that's fine. So to load this guy in the dark, obviously, but you've got these little notches here, and that should correspond with the notch on the film. You want to make sure that your emulsion side is being immersed in developer. So you just kind of hold it in your hand like that, and then you need to curl like the crap out of it, which is where I was going wrong. And you just want to make sure it gets in that little thing. And obviously it's much harder to do that in the dark. The key is you have to curl it over more than you think you do. At least in my experience. I was kind of doing this, and you need to do that. So that's loading this guy and developing it. You develop it just like any other tank development. A guy on the internet said I should use, if I was doing inversion agitation, I should use a whole liter. So I did, and that worked fine. Apparently if you're doing the rolly thing, the guy who sells the reel also sells like a 3D printed roller, which is pretty cool looking. You can get away with a half liter. But I didn't, so I didn't, and that's fine. So that's developing. And then scanning. I scanned with my Epson V550, which is not designed to deal with 4x5 film. It tops out at 120 film. And so I made my own film carrier out of construction paper. It's terrible, but it worked. So actually what I did was, it's 3 pieces of cardstock glued together, and then I put a bunch of books on top, and it still dried all cattywampus. And then I looked up on the internet actual dimensions of 4x5 film, because it's all over the place, and tried to cut holes that would be small enough for the negative to sit on, but large enough to not mask any of the actual image. I almost succeeded. You can see on this one I had to add some blue tape there to make it sit. And you know, I'm not going to say this is great, but it did work. And if it looks stupid but it works, it's not stupid. I did a bunch of math and stuff. You put it in the holder, and then you do one pass, and it gets about 2/3 of the negative, and then you slide it over to the other side of the scanner, and then it gets other 2/3 of the negative. So you have some overlap, which is actually really handy for merging them in Photoshop, because it makes Photoshop do a lot better with that. So now we're going to do a little quick demo of that whole process. I had a hard time with it. Once you got it figured out, it went pretty quickly, but prior to figuring it out, it was a huge pain in the ass. So let's start with the act of affixing the negative to the carrier and go from there. So we're just going to do one. This one was pretty cool. Alright, so you got your film holder. On mine, the top one seems to be a little bit better, so I'm going to use the top one. Blue tape stuck to the hands so I can use it later. Now, Epson recommends scanning with the Emulsion Side Up, and that is, I believe, to help give you just the correctly oriented image. I've heard people say that you should do it Emulsion Side Down. I don't really know that there's much of a difference, particularly on a flat bed. I'm spitting on this though, so that's good. Let me just get this negative nice and gross for us. So we're going to try to get this thing on here. I should probably be wearing gloves or some shit. I'm not. As you can see, no part of this is a precise operation, which is hilarious because optics are notoriously fiddly. Yet here we are. So you got your tape. Put your tape on your film, kind of off the edge. That's all like saliva on it, so I'm sorry that that's gross. Get it on there, tape it down, and then take another piece of tape, kind of do the same thing over here somewhere so it just doesn't move around. Okay, that's about right. Now your negative is taped on your Mad Ratch fucking film holder. So let's go over to the scanner. Alright, so you open up your scanner just like normal. Take your rocket poofy, because you better have one. Poof, 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 poof. I should probably clean this glass, it's kind of gross. Poof, poof, poof. Poof your negative, try to get the spit off of it. So you put it in, and I did it so it would line up with the top here, and you notice this notch. I cut that because there's supposed to be a little window here for the scanner to talk to itself. Guess it gets lonely. So you want to let it do that so it's not sad. Alright, so close it up. Alright, so sorry I'm doing it this way. I tried to use the little Windows screen capture, but I don't know why it didn't like the Epson app. So we're recording the screen with the camera like idiots. You got your film on your thing. So we're into settings now, and hopefully you can at least kind of see this. So 2 caveats. I've got Photoshop Elements, which only works with 8-bit files, which is a huge bummer for a large format, because it means you lose some of the beautiful tonal variations that you get, but it's the only way I've got to work with it, so we're just going to deal with that. So we're going to kind of have it set up black and white negative film, because it's black and white negative film. Then we're going to do 8-bit grayscale. I'd rather do 16, but because I have to use Photoshop to get these things to stick together, I'm stuck with it for now anyway. I scanned them in at 4800 DPI, which gives you about a 400 megapixel end result. Just so this whole video doesn't take so insanely long, I'm just going to do it at like 1200 just to make me go less crazy while we're sitting here doing this. So that's the setup. You hit preview over here. It does its thing. It takes a second. Drink some coffee. Did the preview scan. Hilariously, it tries to make sense of these in terms of like 35mm negatives. None of that. Go over to normal instead of thumbnail. You can see where you got the big ass frame. So you take your little selecty thing and give yourself a little bit of room. Mine's a little crooked, so you're always going to have a little extra room because my cutting skills are subpar. Got the whole thing selected. That looks good. Go over here. Get rid of that unsharp mask nonsense. You can do your own sharpening. It'll come out a lot better. In my case, I like the scanner to do enough of the work where it like inverts the thing and turns it in, if I was doing color, turns it into actual colors, because like I don't have the patience to do all of that. But I want it to do within the bounds of that, the minimum. The biggest one for me is the unsharp mask. I really don't like the results it gives. So got that, and you just go hit scan. It's going to ask you where to put it, so you do that. So we're going to scan that in as a TIFF, hit OK. Sit back, relax, have a beer. Got to do the other half of this, so we'll see all of that in a second. Right, so we got the first one in. Looks like this, a little dirty. Didn't spend a lot of time cleaning it, spat everywhere. So now we're going to do the same thing again, but I've moved the film holder over. So now we're going to get the other part. Yeah, so I decided to keep it on camera because the Windows Media Record thing is just pissing me off. So we've got both our scans. It's Photoshop time. Go ahead and open this bad boy in Photoshop. Alright, so that's one image. Then get the other guy in here. Pull that into Photoshop as well. So now you've got two images in Photoshop. So far so good. Switch from expert mode, I'm assuming you're an expert, over to guided mode because it makes your life easier. Over to photo merge. And then over to panorama. Now you go down to your photo bin here. Since you have these two things already open, in theory you should be able to just select them. So you click on one and then control click to get the other. If you're on a Mac, you do a different thing. That should have both pictures selected. Then you go to settings, blend images together, and then because there's usually a little bit geometric distortion because of there's a little bit of curve or curl in the negative. Hit that. It seems to do a pretty good job getting rid of that kind of stuff. Then you hit create panorama and you sit back and wait while Photoshop chugs along, does whatever it's doing. Like I said before, I'm scanning these guys at 1200 DPI instead of my normal 4800 because it makes everything a lot easier to demonstrate because the whole thing just goes way faster with the smaller files. It's totally worth waiting for the big files because they look amazing, but just so I can do this in real time instead of having to wait 20 minutes for the computer to do stuff. Cool. So, do I want to fill the image edges? Probably not. There is a picture. It did a great job putting it together. Go ahead and just save as. Discard the layers because otherwise it gets mad at you. Okay, so you got that. Now you go into Lightroom. Boom. There it is. Alright, so we're going to go over to Develop. Do a couple things. First, we need to rotate it because it's sideways. So transform, rotate right. Bam. Problem solved. Now we're going to straighten her out because it's all crooked. You can do this in Photoshop too, but honestly it's easier to do everything in Lightroom, so I just do everything in Lightroom. That looks about right. Cool. And then crop it. It's 4x5, so I'm just going to do a 4x5. I like that. I'm obviously not being super careful because I'm just trying to demonstrate. But there, boom. So you've got it in Lightroom. If you want to do anything to it, go down to Sharpening with the TIFF. You have to select the amount first, and then you get down to masking. You can see if you're not careful, you can end up sharpening all the grain and stuff. So slide that mask over until only the lines you care about are sharpened. And then get a little sharpening. Helps out. If you don't want as much grain, you can go down to noise reduction, kind of pull some of that out. Play with it to your taste. You can make it look weird by fucking with the temperature if you want to do a sepia thing or whatever they call that. Looks pretty cool. So obviously being in digital, you can do a lot of things with a hybrid workflow. You can correct some exposure. You can even do adjustment brushes and stuff. But yeah, so once you've got it how you like, you just export it like anything else. Right click, export, bam. And that is how I deal with 4x5 negatives so far. That might change as I do more than 4 of them.